We're going to talk a little bit this afternoon about organizing your home when you homeschool. Because one of the biggest things that I hear from folks when I talk to them about starting to homeschool is how can I possibly homeschool and get my laundry done and do all the other things and do the grocery shopping and make the meals, and it's just a very frustrating experience. So let me know if either of these statements apply to you. Do you ever wake up in the morning already feeling behind before your feet hit the floor? I'm sure, okay, good, because I do. A lot of people will tell me, you know, I can't homeschool because I can't get my act together. I am an incredibly disorganized person. I just don't think that I could keep that going and keep my home going and take care of my family. So we're going to talk a little bit today about how to make that happen, because it is possible, absolutely. So we're going to talk first about what organization is and what it isn't. Organization is really very simple. It's just arranging something in an orderly way. So when you think about if you buy a homeschool curriculum, which of course would be Sonlight, then you're going to get a schedule, and the schedule is going to tell you what you need to do every day, each step of the way. That's organization. So really all organization is creating order by scheduling things. Now you can organize or schedule more than just your homeschool curriculum. There are ways to create order and create a schedule for the rest of what goes on in your family. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit first. So from a very practical standpoint, let's talk about a couple of things to start your day. One of the things that I say to people often is, you know, you wouldn't want to get out of bed in the morning and not get dressed or not eat your breakfast or whatever, because there are just certain things that you need to do to get your day started. One of the things I share is you need to set priorities for your day. When you wake up in the morning, I don't know about you, but I catalog in my head, okay, today I've got to take my daughter to the dentist, and I've got to make sure that I get that laundry to the dry cleaners, and you know, you think through all the things that you have to do. And then you prioritize them, which is more important and what's okay if it doesn't happen. Well, that's a very practical exercise to take place every day that you get up. And so my recommendation is set those priorities and then pray over them. I mean, start each day where Mary started, and that was at the feet of Jesus, because really, he is the one that schedules our day. He's the one that determines what's going to happen in our day. So why not talk to the master scheduler? So that's my recommendation from just a very practical standpoint of getting started on your day. Decide what's important to you and your family. There are going to be a lot of people who want your time outside of your kids and your husband or wife. There are going to be people that want you to babysit their kids. There are going to be people that want you to come and do something at the local charity drive. There are going to be people who want you to volunteer for something at church. People are constantly pulling on your time. So you need to decide which of those things reach the level of importance for your family and which of them don't. And you know, that's an exercise that's a very good idea, husband and wife, to sit down together and make a decision. You know, in the scheme of things for our family, where we are right now in 2010, these things rank at the top. These are things that are no-brainers. We're always going to do these when these crop up. These things, you know, they're nice, and if we've got time, that's good, but if we don't, then those things, we can just say no. And that's probably one of the best things you can do to help organize your time, is to define what your priorities are. One of my husband's priorities for me was to learn to say one word, and that word was no. And he had me practice it and say it with conviction. And really, it's one of the hardest words in the English language, at least for me. Now, some people don't find it hard to say no at all. I am not one of those people. I want everybody to like me, so I always want to say, yes, of course I'll do this for you, or yes, of course I'll take you here, or bake you this, or whatever. It is legitimate to say no, it really is. If someone is asking you to do something that is not part of what you have determined is a priority for your family, then learn to say no. Practice in front of the mirror, whatever it takes to be able to say no. The next thing we want to do is talk about making a plan. Plans were made to be broken, I know, but it's a good exercise to begin to plan certain parts of your day, certain parts of your family. And so one of the first things we talk about when we talk about organization and making a plan is all of those household tasks that, unless you have a maid available, just don't get done on their own. You know, we have things like laundry and cooking and house cleaning and dusting and vacuuming and all those things that need to be done. One of the things I learned early on with my kids, I have 3, is that we needed to help them learn that our family is a team. One of the biggest struggles that we had when I would assign chores to my kids was, well, how come I'm washing dishes 3 times this week and he's only drying twice? And there was this constant weighing of, that's not fair. I'm doing more work than he is. And in their eyes, they're always going to be doing more work than their sibling. So we started trying to impress upon them this whole team concept. We live here together. We act as a team. We work together as a family. And we want to view caring for our home and taking care of things that impact us as a family together as a team. One of the things that I found very helpful was I put together this little 8-step process called Conquer Your Clutter in 8 Easy Steps. So if you wouldn't mind taking a couple and just passing them back. Clutter is probably the #1 battle that all of us face as homeschoolers. Because if we're busy homeschooling, things are piling up here and there in the house and they don't take care of themselves, they don't put themselves away, and eventually you feel like you have been conquered by this mountain of clutter in your house. And so I think hopefully this 8 Easy Steps will give you some ideas for overcoming that. And once you get on top of that mountain of clutter, then it will hopefully give you some ideas for keeping up with so it doesn't become Mount Everest again. Clutter is a very insidious thing. You know, you never think about the fact that if, well, I'm going to kick my shoes off here, I'll take care of them later. Well, if you live in a household with 5 or 6 people and everybody does that, then you have 10 to 12 shoes sitting around in a pile before the day's half over. You know, the same thing with taking a shower. Well, I'll drop my towel here. After I get dressed, I'll come back by and pick it up. Well, if all 5 or 6 people in the house do that, now you have a mountain of towels in the bathroom. You know, and you know what it's like. It happens in every room in your house. It just happens with different things. In the kitchen, it happens when I eat my cereal and put the dish and the glass in the sink and think, I'll wash that up later. After a while, that clutter just conquers you. It overcomes, and now it looks like, where do I start? You know, now I've got this enormous battle facing me, and I don't have a clue where I should begin. Should I start in the kitchen? Should I start in the bathroom? I'm just too discouraged, and so I don't conquer it. I go to bed and get up the next morning, and the mountain grows. And it happens over and over, and it is self-perpetuating, and it's one of those things that just never changes. Come on in. So you can pick up a flyer right there on the front. So what's really important is to not let it conquer you, to get ahead of it and then stay ahead of it. And hopefully the steps that I've listed here will help you know, where do I begin? How do I start? Well, this is a step-by-step, really easy plan, and at the end you get to eat chocolate or have a cup of tea or whatever works for you. So how bad can a plan be that lets you have chocolate? Meal planning. That's another one of those things. If you're homeschooling all day, you've taken the kids to flute lessons, you've taken your son to a baseball practice, and you come home and it's 6 o'clock at night and everybody's saying, man, Mom, I'm starved. And you think, oh no, I didn't plan anything for supper. Now what do? Everything's frozen. Okay, let's go to McDonald's. Well, you can only do that so often, you know, and after a while people start to get sick because they're not eating healthy food, but your budget suffers, and there is a way to plan for meals and for caring for groceries. The first thing is create a weekly menu plan. This is what I used to do when my kids were younger, and I just couldn't seem to keep up with this. I have a little file box that was divided by main dishes. I had chicken recipes, and I had beef recipes, and I had pasta recipes and soup recipes, and then I had a menu that never changed from week to week. Monday night, we always had a chicken dish. Tuesday night, we always had a pasta dish. Wednesday night, we always had a casserole or a soup dish. Thursday night, we always had a beef dish. Friday night, we always had homemade pizza. So the actual structure of the weekly menu never changed. What changed was, as each week came up, I went to my little file box and said, what shall we have for a chicken dish this week? And I would pull out a recipe. What shall we have for a pasta dish this week? And I would pull out a recipe. I used to make up those weekly menus 2 weeks at a time because my husband gets paid every 2 weeks. And I would grocery shop every 2 weeks. And I always shopped based on my menu. Saved me money because I wasn't wandering through the grocery store thinking, oh, that sounds good. Oh, that looks good. Maybe I can use this on Thursday. I already knew what I was going to cook on those days because I stuck with the same plan every week. My family always knew that on Thursday night we would be eating something with beef in it. And so it meant that I didn't have to get up in the morning and think, oh no, I don't know what to cook today. Well, sure you do. Go look at your menu plan. Open the index card box and pull out a recipe that goes with whatever is on the menu for today. It was so simple, it seemed ridiculous to me, but boy, did it save me a lot of frustration and stress, just because I always knew what I had to cook. The other thing I highly recommend for meal planning and preparation is buy a crock pot. Doesn't everybody want to be able to multitask? I mean, isn't that the thing? Wouldn't you like to be able to vacuum, do laundry, and teach your children all at the same time? Well, you can cook a meal and teach your children and do laundry all at the same time if you own a crock pot. Because you put the meal in the crock pot in the morning, and while you're cooking and teaching, or while you're teaching the children and doing the laundry, it's cooking your supper. And when it comes time to put the plates on the table, you take the lid off and, wow, there it is. And it's like you slaved all day. And really all you did was put it in the pot and turn it on. But you can let your family know that you worked really hard to get that meal on the table. So if you don't own a crock pot, I highly recommend getting one. And there are cookbooks galore out there for crock pot cooking, or you can just put your chicken in the crock pot or put your beef in the crock pot, depending on whatever is scheduled for your weekly menu plan. So just some real practical ideas for making a plan for menus and meals and grocery shopping. Okay, whoops, went too far. Laundry. My socks reproduce in my laundry room, I swear. I put 3 pairs down there and come back 2 hours later and there are 8 pairs. You know, they grow. Same with underwear, towels, and whatever else. I found, because a good friend of mine came over one day and spent the afternoon with me, and I was frustrated to no end because I couldn't keep up with my laundry. And she said, how old are your kids again? And at that time I had a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. She said, so why are you doing laundry? Why aren't your kids? And I said, well, they're too little to do laundry. They can't do laundry at 6, 4, and 1. Certainly they can. And so what she shared with me that day was, here's a skill that everybody should know. Everybody should know how to do their own laundry. So as soon as they're tall enough to reach the top of a laundry basket, teach them how to sort their clothes. Everybody has a laundry basket in their room. This is great for beginner training. This is great for teaching kids what colors are and whites are, how to separate them, how to match up socks, how to put shirts in another basket. So not only are you teaching them to do laundry, you're teaching them math, and you're teaching them to be artistic because they're looking for color and for whites. So you're multitasking again. The other thing it does is it teaches them at a young age to have responsibility. These are their clothes that they're wearing, so they get to wash them. Once my kids got tall enough to reach the dials on the washing machine, they each were assigned a day of the week and they learned to do their own laundry. I have not done my children's laundry for years. And do you know how much time that bought me in my day because I wasn't doing my kids' laundry? The only laundry I do is mine and my husband's. My kids have done their own laundry for years. And it created time in my day. Now, my day doesn't have any more than 24 hours like anybody else's, but when my kids began to learn to take some of their own responsibility on themselves, what a time saver. I did the same thing with meal planning. I haven't cooked a meal in quite a long time because I have teenagers in my house, and they all have learned how to create a shopping list, to put together a menu. They work together as a team, and they write out the week's menu, and each one of them has a day of the week that they're assigned to cook. And so they're learning very valuable skills for when they leave my house, and they're buying me time. Now someday when my kids are all gone, I'll cook again, and I'll do laundry again. I don't think I've forgotten. You know, it's like riding a bike, you never forget. But what a wonderful set of skills to give your kids. Not just because you want to be lazy and not have to work, but because they need to know how to do those things. You know, someday my son's future wife is going to thank me that he knows how to do his laundry, and that when she's pregnant and has morning sickness, he can cook lunch and she doesn't have to do it. So very practical skills, but it also buys you time in your day. And this is how you can homeschool and still get the laundry done and still get menu planning done and put good basic food on the table. So what about school? What do we do about getting this whole homeschooling idea into our day? Again, priorities is going to be a good place to start. What do you need to do each day? Do you want to do math every day? Okay. Do you want to do science every day? No, maybe we'll do science 3 days a week instead of 5, okay? What you're doing is creating a basic plan for yourself. You're looking through what you need to do academically and putting it down on paper. So once you get your plan on paper and do it in pencil because plans change. Life happens. Children get sick in the middle of the night and you're up till 1 or 2 in the morning washing sheets. Cars break down and have to be taken to the garage. You know, that's part of life. But because you have a plan, you have something to fall back on and things don't fall apart when life happens. So make a plan and then equip yourself with the tools that you need. You're not going to teach math without pencils. Everybody needs pencils to do math unless you're doing it on the computer. So look at your basic plan and make a list and go to Staples or Office Depot or wherever you go and get the tools that you need to do the job. You know, you would not expect an engineer to do his job without the proper tools. You are a homeschooling teacher. You should not do your job without the proper tools. And it may go beyond, you know, pencils and paper. Maybe you need a bookshelf. You know, you buy your Sonlight curriculum and all these books come in this big box. Where do I put all these books? So you know that on your list of necessary tools, I need a bookcase. Go buy one, a collapsible bookcase. Maybe your husband is just real nifty with tools and he can build you a bookcase. I don't know. But that's part of the tools that you need to do your job. One of the things that we did for school, we live in a very small house, not real big at all. We don't have a schoolroom. You don't need one to do school. I educated my children in my dining room. Didn't have to have a schoolroom. Educated my children without desks and chairs. Don't need them to do school. Those were not on my list of necessary tools. But what I did need were baskets. Each one of my kids had like a Rubbermaid basket with handles on it. And on Sunday afternoon, we would pull out the plan for the week. We would pull the books they needed off the shelves, their math books and their science books, and we would put them in the basket and set them in the living room next to the couch. Monday morning, each one of those kids knew where their school materials were. Nobody had to say, Mommy, where's my math book? Mommy, I can't find my pencil, because it all had to be in the basket on Sunday night. Very easy way to buy yourself time. I didn't tear my hair out Monday morning looking for stuff that my kids needed to do school because it was right where it belonged. Everything had a home. Everything had a place. I knew where my teaching materials were. I always set them aside in a particular spot. So the whole idea, again, is create a plan and stick with it. It buys you time. It lessens your frustration and your stress. And it's really not complicated. You don't have to buy any special tools to put on your computer to create a plan. You don't need one of those $100 planners from Walmart or whatever. You can do it very simply just by having a basic plan and a place for things to belong. And so those are just some very simple tools for making a plan. Bottom line, as we've been talking about, time that's invested now means less stress for you in the future. So this summer, after you've gotten your school materials together, spend some time. Set aside a couple days a week, maybe a couple 3 weeks in a row, and think about the tools that you need. Think about what your priorities are for the school year. Every year, when our kids were little, until they got almost out of high school, my husband and I would set aside either an evening and we'd go out to dinner, or an afternoon we'd go for a walk in the park, and we would talk about last year's school, what worked, what didn't. We talked about each child and where their successes were and where their failures were, and then we made a plan for the coming school year. And I wrote it down. For every child, I had 2 academic goals, And I had 2 spiritual goals or character goals. You know, Johnny needed to learn to read better this year, and he needs to learn his addition facts. Where did he succeed? We talked about that. We talked about character issues. You know, Sarah has a real struggle with submitting to authority, so I knew I needed to work on that for the year. So now I have my priorities for my kids for the year. I've started my plan. When January and February roll around, which were the hardest months of the year for me to homeschool, we just come through the high of Christmas. In New York, where I live, there were 2.5 feet of snow on the ground, no exaggeration. We weren't going places because we were sitting in by our wood stove trying to stay warm. And I just thought, why am I homeschooling? Why do I want to do this? That's a really hard time of year for me to homeschool. I would go pull that list out, look at what the goals were for our school year, and remind myself, this is what you're doing this year. History was not a priority this year. Now, it's a good thing, and we taught it, but if Johnny is a little bit behind in history this year, but we're plugging forward on his goal of learning his phonics, then I'm good. No homeschool mom guilt here. I am accomplishing the goals that we set as a husband and wife. And so I cut myself some slack, pulled myself up by my bootstraps, and we moved on. So invest the time now to set the goals, because it will pay off big time in the future. Set your own standards. The other thing that is a huge problem with homeschool moms is comparativitis. We look at what this family over here is doing in our co-op, and this family over here is doing in our support group, and these 2 families are doing at our church, and we're not doing any of those things. So we obviously are failing, and we're not living up to the mark, and why are we doing this homeschooling thing? And it just perpetuates itself. Set your own standards. Your family has your unique needs for your children and your time period in your life, and they're not the same needs that this family over here has or that family over there has. And you know, we can all learn from one another and gain good insight from what other people are doing, but when push comes to shove, your family has certain needs and they're not someone else's. So save yourself the hassle of comparing yourself to someone else and set your own standards. And once you have invested the time and set your own standards, enjoy the process. I had to teach myself to enjoy homeschooling. But you know, there are memories that I made with my kids that I will never forget. When my youngest, who struggled so hard to learn how to read, read his first book on his own, the look on his face will be a memory I always have. I learned to enjoy the process. I didn't cheat myself out of that memory because I was there to see the end result. I have a child getting married this year. We have built a relationship through all those years of schooling together. We learned together, we struggled together, we hated math together, we did science together and oohed over the dissecting the frog together, but we built a relationship. And now that she's getting married, she's talking to me about all of her questions and all of her dreams. And again, I've not been cheated out of that time in my life and in her life because we built that relationship together over a bunch of years. But we had the opportunity to do that because I wasn't running around every day pulling my hair out thinking, I can't get dinner on the table and laundry's not caught up, nobody has anything to wear, because I invested the time ahead of time. And you know what? It didn't come naturally, and it wasn't something I learned to do right from the beginning. It came over a period of time, but boy, was it worth it. So just some very practical ideas, hopefully some tips you can take home. Maybe one little nugget that we've shared today will be helpful for your homeschool this fall.